All of them had what we call as comparable HbA1c. Now you can see, you don't need to be a physician, you can see that patient A, B, C, or D, each of them have a different profile that is offered by this product, Freestyle Libre Pro. In essence, the physician now will not necessarily treat each of these 4 patients the way he or she would do if they just used self-monitoring of glucose, or they used a lab, or they used HbA1c. So in conclusion, I think what we have tried to do is, rather than create a product that's generally what manufacturers do, we deliberately took time, we deliberately wanted to put a product in India, and as I said earlier, this product is available in India, and we've had several thousand patients benefit from this. This is our first offering. I've heard a lot of people talk about sensor. Here, we already have it here in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Dilip. A new innovation has been found. Definitely, IT also correlation we'll discuss further. I will tell you one episode happened during 96, 95 when I was working in the department. That time IT was not much of this one. One manufacturer, I don't want to quote the name of the manufacturer, one manufacturer while producing some Comset A Forte, that time it was called, when it was released to the market, and in one eye camp, when it was used, some 2 deaths happened and 7, 8 adverse reactions took place and all. Probably, with the help of IT, the industries would have been able to trace it. It would have been, the episode would have been avoided, I feel. So, because that time, the medical representative who had given, he had totally forgotten, though it was traced to some extent, physical tracing. So that is most important. IT and our other things, health is in the care of, total care of medicines in health, it is the most important. In this aspect, I request Mr. Anand to give his.
All right, while we wait, I'll just start talking a little bit. So I run a company called Track My Beat Healthcare. What we're trying to do is trying to bring in the concept of different types of sensors and then get the data easily across to a central place where you can process the data to start making some analysis of it. So, for example, which Mr. Dilip just talked about, a particular type of sensor for diabetes. So if you can get that data to a central place, one thing is you start seeing a trend, but also you want to see have the doctors look at the data and then also help in prescription prescribing drugs as well as other interventions. So the whole point is if you can start capturing all of that together in one place, then you can have other than having a contiguous medical record, you also actually start creating a method of treatment and following how it is being done, and then trying to see the impact of the treatment on the health outcomes. So as you continue to monitor and offer a treatment, then slowly you start looking at what we can do to start changing the way the things are being offered. So even changing the treatment style if required. So I'll talk about the different innovations that are possible. So I just mentioned about Track My Beat, and we are focused on fundamentally chronic care, so chronic diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular risks. Okay. So, since this panel is about the pharma industry, so we thought that let's look at pharma industry specifically. And one of the points is the physician's role has become confined to one of prescriptions typically, and people may or may not come back. There's a lack of follow-up, and then patients also may stop medication halfway. So often, even if they are on chronic illnesses, they often forget, or they continue to, they might change something midway because it was not working for them. And so that data is lost over time. And then also we see that because there is no follow-up, so there is no way to actually see what was the health outcome. So generally saying the patient calling and saying, I am feeling okay, is not a really good outcome, right? So you cannot really monitor something like that. And so there is no scientific methodology that has been followed in general for a long period of time. So of course we have looked at this data, but the main point is, if you see the part in bold, the pharmaceutical industry really can deliver the greatest value as long as its medication is applied correctly. And of course, that's the greatest benefit also for the pharmaceutical industry, because this is our long-term care that we're talking about. So fundamental problems, the compliance is poor. As I was saying, the goal of pharmaceutical companies is to provide correct medication. And then because people remain well, hence they will get benefit because people will continue to take the medication rightly. Okay? And if you don't do that, then you end up doing wrong medication or over medication sometimes. People end up taking multiple medications without following up with the doctor. As a result, there will be drug interactions, a lot of side effects. So what happens over time is the effectiveness of the medication might drop, and then the pharmaceutical company or the medicine itself getting blamed for it, saying, oh, this medicine doesn't work for me, without fully grasping why it did not work. Okay? And then, of course, this impacts the whole inventory process and the supply process of the pharmaceutical industry. Also, the problem is there's insufficient medical research data. So I think, again, what Dilip talked about was very interesting in terms of if you collect data over a period of time, you can start looking at personalized medicine. And that's kind of what I will also mention here. So the concept here is simple. You can have sensors, and these sensors are of different types. You can have very small sensors like something that gets in the skin, or a fundamental measurement like a BP machine, or a glucometer, or a weighing machine. So these are standard looking devices. The only thing they will have different would be connectivity. Okay? So they will be connected over, say, Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, and this data gets transferred to over a mobile application to a central place. And then from there, this data can then feed to a pharmacy, it can go to a hospital or a doctor, and then you can also introduce a concept of personal health manager. Why that concept can be, it might become important over time is fundamentally the lack of doctors that we have in our system on a per capita basis. So the approach can be a little unique. So you start with a plan, then you get into monitoring, then you talk about correlation, and finally digitized inventory update of the medication. And some of the people on the panel might be interestingly talk about it as well on the inventory update part. But the first part is the planning. So when the doctor creates an intervention plan, they might get into a full detail that, okay, over the next 6 months, this is what the plan is. And the importance of this plan is not to, typically if doctor writes a prescription, it goes on a piece of paper and goes off to a patient's house, and then it gets buried under a lot of general paper or documents. But the point is, if you can have it electronic, and if this hits the calendar of the patient, okay, in an automated fashion, then you can have every morning a person is getting up, they get a calendar reminder that these are the things I have to do today. And it could be medication, it could be exercise, it could be some clinical review that has to be done, or a lab test. So a variety of things that may need to be monitored over a period of time. That's a plan. Then you get into monitoring. So through the sensors, through other data that might come from the labs or from a pharmacy, the data can come to the central place again. And then over a period of time, you can track what is the health of the health condition of the patient. So again, as they are planning all these different interventions that the doctor is planning for them, and they're following it, what is happening to their health at this time. And then, of course, all the medication that they have to take, the period of time they need to take, which then can feed into an inventory. Then we look at impact analysis, or the correlation part of it, and that's very straightforward. What will happen there is, you can see that this is the medication I'm taking. What is the impact on my health parameters? Okay? So it's a very clean process by which you can start modeling yourself and looking at what is helping me. So some of the things that obviously apply to medication or different types of therapies that you can also follow. So different people have talked about Ayurveda as an example also. And what people don't have is detailed studies, or they don't believe in that. So in the same, using the standard measurement techniques, you can compare different ways of medicines, different types of medicines as well. And you can start seeing what really works for the person. Thus getting deeper into personalized medicine actually. Okay? So these are the different technologies that you can use in an innovative way. You can start monitoring the health of people, so that you can have medication tied strongly to health outcomes. So that's a quick summary of the different ways you can take the steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand, for elaborating the data is the most important of patient, how to plan, maintain, monitor, and all the things. See, whatever it is there, patient is the supreme. Whoever it is there, patient is the supreme. The most important is how easily availability or how easily accessible medicine to him. And it has to be proper, good quality. We hear so many times spurious, counterfeit, all those things. It should not happen. How it can be done? How easily we can assess? For example, I will tell you about 3 years or 3.5 years back. In Karnataka, we brought out a portal with the help of NIC about the blood bank, blood's availability of the blood. Different groups, AB or O, whatever the group is there, and blood products like platelet and all. Now it is by click of the button, there are about 170 blood banks are there in Karnataka. All the blood banks, every day they upload whichever has been sold and given. So at any given time, you will come to know near about where the blood is available, required blood. But that doesn't mean that a patient can go and purchase as it is. It requires prescription, it requires certain things. Legally has to go. Anyhow, going further, I request Mukherjee sir to give his thoughts.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairperson, sir, and thank you, Rajan, for the invite. As I told you in my introduction, that I am a bit odd man out of this group, but nevertheless, as a funding agency, I represent a funding agency, and we support all the groups who are speaking in this panel today in one way or the other. And I think that is the connection we have. Though we don't do active programs per se, we fund very similar programs to promote innovations and in the healthcare space. Just a quick introduction on what we do. I represent Wellcome Trust, which is a global charity based out of London, but we have programs around the world. And we call ourselves the second largest charity of the world after the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And we fund healthcare programs, large, medium, and small programs. And the crux of what we fund is innovations. Innovations in all aspects. And in India, we have a major program on affordable healthcare, which again funds innovations leading to affordable healthcare interventions in India and beyond. So, as a funder, what do we look at when we look at innovations? It might be a pharma innovation, it might be an IT innovation, it might be a diagnostic innovation, and as Dilip pointed out just now, on the diabetes side, non-communicable diseases, communicable diseases, as Anand spoke on IT-enabled services for healthcare delivery, all innovations we can be put in the same pot. And as a funder, how we look at innovations which can really act as affordable healthcare interventions for the patient population. So first thing what we look at as a funder to fund innovation is it should have a strong unmet need. That is the crucial part of any innovation funding what we do. We call ourselves and any other funder as funding the value of death. We fund high risk innovations. We don't look at returns, but we fund high risk innovations so that the program becomes de-risked. And once the program becomes de-risked, a lot of pharma companies can take it over, IT companies can take it over. We can handhold them to the next level so that it can be rolled out. We fund basic innovations. We fund translational innovations. We fund delivery innovations, which is validations or clinical trials, which fall on that. So we fund basic, translational, as well as delivery innovations. So as a funder, what we look at is it has a strong unmet need. It should not be congested. Congested in the sense that it's not many people or a lot of groups working in the same space. That program becomes too much congested so that we don't know how fast you are going to reach the end of the program. And once you reach the end of the program, there might be a number of players in that program. So, you will have challenges to move your innovations, especially in this field. So, you need to work in a really innovative space. And then, what is your exit strategy into the program? How do you want to exit out from the program? That what as a funder we look at the healthcare innovations. So we look at a total 360-degree approach. Your science has to be strong because it is an innovative program. Without science, you can't move ahead. But saying so, science constitutes 50 to 60% of the program. The downside of it, what is the regulatory approach of the program? What are the challenges you face? We look at that. What is the IP strategy, if any, into the program? And what is the business plan? What is your exit strategy? All things have to be built into the program, and then we do a strong due diligence to look at the innovations, and then we handhold it. Handhold is the beauty of any funding agency, is that we work with you, we see how the innovation can be scaled up, and then we take you ahead to the next stages. Either you join up with a larger company, or if you have that strength, you can roll it out as a program or a product, or you can license it out to somebody else. So there are various models by which you can move out of this. Coming down to specific projects, how we look at it is in India we have programs from diagnostics to pharma drugs to clinical trial and IT-enabled services. We are working with groups in Bangalore on making a special app for the ASHA workers, which is right now into the validation phase. And WHO we are supporting WHO to work with the state government as well as to dole out a specific program for them. We are trying to work out in Haryana as well as in Kerala for non-communicable disease management and app, and that too with the state governments also, especially for the mental health as well as cardiovascular disorders. So, and all these programs, in these programs which are specific to, there can't be any business model, but what we look at is how strong is your advocacy strength. How strong is the advocacy strength? Because these programs need to be adopted by the state governments. So how strong is your advocacy strength with the state governments, with the policy makers, so that these can be adopted into the national programs as well. So those skills are looked at when we look at such huge program fundings. So in summary, what as a funder we look at is what is the unmet need you have, what is your exit strategy from the program, and what is your policy uptake of the program is. So if these criteria are fulfilled by an innovator, I think he has a strong chance to take his program to the next level. During the discussion, if you have any questions, I will be happy to address. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukherjee, for your on helping to innovation, R&D and all. As I told in the beginning, we have different system of medicines other than allopathic, Ayurveda, which is the most important. Our ancestors, everybody used to use that Ayurveda system. So how it can be used with IT, how it can be clubbed and all, I request Mr. Madhusudan to express his thoughts.